Yeah, today we're gonna be doing a tier list on from the first iPhone, the 2G, all the way to the 13. So let's start. So A means Apple. Thank God Apple made it, and F is like, why did Apple even make it? So let's start off with the 2G. The 2G was the revolutionary of where phones are now, where Samsung now makes phones, because if you notice, some phones were like a flip phone and then the iPhone came, and now every phone is the same thing as the iPhone. um so I would give it an A due to being it was very revolutionary. It was an amazing phone. The only issue was price at $549, I think it was, but it's still worth the A. Next, we have the 3G. The 3G. So this had 3G cellular but I don't like how it was plastic. It made it seem like a cheap phone, and I mean it did cost $199, yeah, $199, and it was very cheap. I mean, it was better than the phone before that, but like, I'm gonna give it a B. Then I don't have a picture of a iPhone 3GS, but I would do the 3GS in the same place. The only difference was speed and that. Next, we move on to iPhone 4. This is my favorite iPhone. Now that I'm thinking about it, I would move the 3G and the 3GS down to C, and put the 4 onto B, because it was a new beautiful design. It had a front camera for FaceTime. FaceTime was introduced, but there were some things that don't make it go on A, just because like how heavy it was and how easy it broke due to being like the back and the front being glass. Like, we didn't have wireless charging in 2010, so there was no point of a glass back. It did make it feel premium, but making it premium means that you're gonna end up buying more iPhones, and that'll be even more money. So like, they end up switching it to the aluminum in 2012. Again, I don't have the white picture of it. So the S also goes next to it due to the Siri's still around. It didn't die like other assistants that didn't make it for a very long time, but Siri's still around. Now there's a HomePod, and now it works with Apple TV. Now it's on your Mac, everything, blah blah blah. So yeah, the iPhone 4, the 4 and the 4S go in the B tier. The iPhone 5, oh my goodness, this has to go in A. First of all, the beautiful design, especially the color that's on screen, the matte black sort of thing. The design, first of all, it's beautiful design. And then, like, everything about it's so beautiful. It had a good chip in it. I don't know what chip it had. I'm trying to remember. I think it was the A6, if I remember correctly. I did make a history of the iPhone video a few days ago, so if you want to go check it out, link down below. But this definitely goes next to the iPhone 2G. So what I'm gonna do is, because I don't have pictures of the S model that much, so we're gonna skip over like the small upgrades, like, you know, the S's. Now let's move on to the iPhone 5C. This goes down, I want to say E, because still the price was okay, $100. But the thing was, it was a full plastic design. It had an older chip. I think it was a camera really sucked. And for $100 more, you could have got the 5S, which came out the same year, the same day, the same hour, and it was much better, which much premium. Because now that you notice, like the SE is way less cheaper than the iPhone 13, and yeah, that makes it worse. The SE its price, but like being $100 difference in it's like just the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro. Like it's $100 different. You're just getting not 3 cameras and this and that, right? I'm not gonna go like get mad and upset about it. But let's do the iPhone 5S. The iPhone 5S was a small upgrade, so this will go. I wanna do C or B. Cause it wasn't big. It did get Touch ID, so it's not gonna go lower than C. I don't know. I wanna say. I'm gonna leave it in C and switch it later if I want to. Up next, we have the iPhone 6, the 6, and the 6 Plus. Like, they're both the same thing, so I'm not gonna do the pluses. So the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus, one camera, just the other one was larger display and a bigger battery. The 6, the issue that did have was bendgate and like the thinness of it. Like, it was the thinnest iPhone in 2014. But the bendgate problem, I'm trying to think. Like the iPhone 4, I have used it before. It has been amazing, beautifully designed. Just the big bendgate issue. This iPhone wouldn't go A, and then neither would go C. So I think it would go B. And now the 6S. Really? I'm not sure that much. I'm not really sure. I'm trying to think. It's definitely not gonna be going to how do you call it, the A section? Was it revolutionary or stuff like that, right? It was like it wasn't revolutionary. Like, we did get an extra color, which was a rose gold. It still had the same for the same sizes from the Plus. The difference was it got an A9 chip. It still had Touch ID, same battery. It did get 64 gigabytes as the second tier model. I would say it has to go next to the iPhone 6. There was not really much of a difference. Like the camera did change. The 6S and 6S Plus did get a 12 megapixel wide camera, while the 6 had the 8 megapixel. But other than that, and the chip, and it did get 4K. But I think I would go with B. I would go with B. Because those minor upgrades were worth the thing. So yeah, it would go next to the iPhone 6. It's definitely not. Well, now that I'm considering, I think I would put iPhone 6 down here, and then move so C for iPhone 6, and then B for iPhone 6S. Okay. So E in the E section, down in the lower, D, E, F, or like the wasn't that good section. So we only have the 5C in there. Not bad. Let's move on with the first generation iPhone SE. This one is an immediate B because it was $300. They had the same little cute iPhone 5 design in the 4, mostly the 5, and it had the same thing as the iPhone 6 and 6S. It had the same things. I think the front camera was the only thing that was lacking. I think it was a lower resolution or lower megapixel, and the screen was tinier. I think it was 4 inches and now 4.7. But it did have most of the same things. It had the same A9 chip. It had 13 hours of playtime, so it had more than the 6S. But it was just the smaller version of the 6, but it still was like we still got a second generation of it, so it's worth be. Now we move to the 7 and the 7 plus. We put the 7. I'm trying to think. It was the same design as the 6. I'm not sure if it was thicker or thinner, but it didn't have the antenna bands going under the camera. It still had the A10 Fusion chip, 13 hours of video playtime. It did get water resistant up to 1 meter and for 30 minutes. Basically, it was almost the same thing as the iPhone 6 and 6S, but it was new water. It did get optical image stabilization. So I would put this in the C area because it was a minor upgrade. Okay, now let's move to the 7 Plus, which is the 7 Plus was just its bigger brother. It had two 12 megapixel cameras. It had a bigger battery, a bigger screen. Same thing. I would put it next to the 7. There's no real difference from it, only the extra camera, and that's it. So now let's move on to the iPhone 8. The iPhone 8 did get back its glass design from the iPhone 4. It got wireless charging. The camera upgrades. It did get the A11 Bionic chip. Same battery life. It did same water resistance. Almost same thing as the iPhone 7. The camera was the same. It still had the optical stabilization. I'm gonna put it next to the 7 series. And same with the Plus. It was no different. There was no difference in it. So we see most of it's filling the C, which means C means like it's an okay iPhone. It's okay. It wasn't the greatest iPhone, but it was okay. It's an okay iPhone. Now let's move on to the 10, which came out the same day. And this one, the price did lack at $1,000, but the rest of the things, like the new display, we got the full display with the little notch, which we finally got. Not rid of it, but it got smaller at least. At least it got smaller. It did have a 5.8-inch display. It had a telephoto camera as the rest, but this time the camera was the other way around. Same A11 chip. It has Face ID. That's a new thing, and I think the reason Apple was a little late to the Face ID trend was because they were trying to perfect it. Like in an interview with Marquez, I think it was Marquez. They said who was it? Craig Federighi said they take more to try to perfect it so people get the best experience. It had portrait mode. Had the 5 effects: the natural, the studio, the contour, the stage, and the stage mono, as we have now with all our iPhones. So this iPhone is worth the B section. So this goes right here. I thought it was gonna go even lower, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's worth up there. The 10R. Let's move on with the 10R. 10R is the same thing as the 5C, but it's not going down there because it did it's just not it did have a bigger display, a 6.1, but it did only have one camera. It did get the A12 Bionic chip, 16 hours of video playtime. It still had the water resistance. It had a lower screen, a lower camera. So I would put it down in D because it wasn't really worse, because now that you're like the 11 was more worth it when it came out next to the 11 Pros. Now the 10s and the 10s Max, they're the same thing, just bigger screen also, same camera design and everything. This goes down and C because it does. It's the same thing. It had the, let me check. It had a same A12 chip. It was just the Max was bigger, but it was the same camera design. It still had the same the 2 meter water resistance, but it was only a little bit of difference. Almost same camera, same features, but it did get portrait mode with depth control. But what I'm gonna do is move the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 down, and the pluses stay up here because they were much better than the smaller model. Okay, there's a big change. Okay, now let's move on with the iPhone 11. The 11 was the best iPhone out there. I have used it personally for the longest time, and I love it. The two cameras that have the wide and the ultra wide, the A13 chip, the 17 hours of video playtime, the better Face ID. It still had a liquid Retina display. A13 chip. You know the camera. We got night mode. We got deep fusion, optical image stabilization, which was the optical image stabilization is the same thing, but I think it got better. 2x optical zoom and digital up to 5x. Then it had the next generation smart HDR. Which this I want to put in the B. Because for its price, it was very close with the Pro models, very close. So I would it had true depth for the front. It had Retina flash for the front. It had the portrait mode for the front also, and all that. Now the Pro and the Pro Max, they were the same thing, just different size and bigger battery. This definitely goes into C section because it did have other features that the 11 didn't have itself. Like this had 4x optical zoom range, and the extra camera, which was the telephoto, which the 11 didn't have. And then up to 20 hours of video playback, 4 meters for water resistance. Still the A13 chip, same camera thing, 4K, the same front camera stuff. We did get it did have emoji and all the stuff, but it's not worth the iPhone SE. The iPhone SE. I'm kind of debating putting it in A. I kind of do want to. Because the original iPhone SE was, I think, $100 more than the 6S at a time. But this being cheaper than it disappeared. Being cheaper than the way cheaper than the 11 and the Pros makes it A. It had the same things as the iPhone 11 and the Pros. Only one camera. It had basically the same internals and everything. The camera was alright. It was worth the $399. Like, I would give it the 2020 year award of best budget phones. Okay, now let's move on with the 12 series. The 12 got its new design, the new body design, a new beautiful design. We also got the 12 mini, but let's not talk about that one. We did get MagSafe. We got up to 6 meters of Water resistance, we got ceramic shield. We got the A14 chip. We did get 5G. We the 5G was the first 5G iPhone out there. I'm trying to look. The front camera was the same, had the same thing, but it did have HDR video recording with Dolby Vision, slow mo. It had other things. It still had the night mode and all that. This I would put in the B section also. B section it goes for. And then the Pro models was the same design, same design. It had the third camera, which was the telephoto. It did have a LIDAR scanner, LiDAR scanner for night mode, portrait, faster autofocus, and low light, and the next level AR experience. Same A14 chip, battery was around the same, ceramic shield, same water resistant. So it would go. The Pro would go next to the last year's Pros, or not last year's, the 11 Pros. Now let's move on with the 13. We're almost done with this video. The 13. The 13 I would put in B because of the new features. Like it's almost the same as the Pro models. It does have 5G still. It has cinematic mode and Dolby Vision, which is amazing. The 815 chip, 19 hours of video playtime. Ceramic shield, water resistance, and MagSafe. It has the Super Retina XDR display as last year. And then it has, the two dual 12 megapixel cameras. And then like with the new photographic style. Amazing cinematic mode, which is amazing, a depth of field or shallow depth of field at 1080p at 30 frames per second. Sensor shifts optical image stabilization that was only on the 12 Pro Max, like Pro Max, not the Pro. It was the Pro Max. Amazing stereo recording makes it. This is why this has to go to B. That's why it's in B. And now lastly, we have iPhone 13 Pro, which I'm kind of debating putting it on the B. I think I am gonna put it in B because it does sound like the cinematic mode, but it also has ProRes. It has the new. It has portrait mode also, like not portrait mode, but I mean like cinematic mode. For the new recording, which is amazing. ProRes, almost the same thing as the iPhone 13, but it's still amazing. We get photographic style for the front camera. We get cinematic for the front camera too. We get ProRes for the front camera too. Cinematic with video stabilization in 4K, 1080p, or 720 in the front camera too. So this is worth the front, or not the front, the B. So now let's take down a quick rundown of the list. The A section, we get the 2G, the 5, and the SC, the second SC, because they're all amazing phones. Like the 2G revolutionized where the phones are today. The 5 had an amazing design. It was amazing. The SE showed an amazing budget phone from Apple, an amazing budget phone for everyone. No matter if you like Samsung or iPhone. The B section, the iPhone 4 had amazing design also, but the glass back was a big issue. The 6 had a bit bent, the bent gate issue. Also, the iPhone SE was $100 more and it had a diner display. That's why that one didn't make it up in A. The 10 price $1,000, but it did have many great features like Animoji and the new notch, which was new. The iPhone 11, same. It had an amazing wide range of colors and amazing features. The same to the iPhone 12 and the 13 and the 13 Pro. And the C section, we have the 3G and the 3GS. The plastic design wasn't the greatest. We get the iPhone 5s, which wasn't the greatest update. It had Touch ID, but that was basically it. Same with the 6s, and then the 7 and the 8. The pluses, the 7 and 8 pluses, were great for its time, but they weren't amazing where they were in B section. The same with the 10s Max, and the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro weren't that big of a difference from the normal that I would consider it go with B. And then D, where the iPhone XR was the almost the same thing as the 5C. Really, not the greatest phone out there. It was budget, but like it should have been budgeter for what you got. The same with the 8 and the 7. The normals, the pluses did a better job for an extra $100. I think it was, you would get better stuff, a dual camera. And then in E we get the 5C. The 5C, which was a horrible phone because you could get $100 more and get the latest 5S, which, I mean, it did make it in the section, but for its time, that was much better. F, we got nothing. So that's basically it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in another video. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And see you guys later.